So I see your rendering style is very comic-esque, and I mean it works. At the end of the day, whatever style fits you, whatever style suits you is great. Um, yeah. So let's look at the color scheme now. This is what I pointed out in the other class. I see your reference on this other in this other picture. I see your reference with the you know Caribbeans. I think Colombian, Colombians, South Americans generally, they like to wear a lot of color. I get that. But here's the thing I would say, the problem I have with so much color and so much patterns like this is it can become a distraction, because now I'm going to be focusing on all these things. I'm going to be looking at like my eye, which is supposed to be here now is lost in all this part because of how beautiful your rendering is, how fantastic and how intricate all these colored components are. I'm drawn to that part already, and I'm going to say what I've said to a couple of people, so far is based on last week's assignments is that we are character designers, not character creators. So we're not in the business of creating characters, because if we're just creating characters, then it doesn't really matter what it looks like you can just be anything. We can create, combine whatever colors we want, make it, look like equal amounts of saturation of the 7 colors from the rainbow competing with each other for attention. We can do anything we want. That's character creation. But character design is purposeful. Character design is purposeful in the sense that we are thinking about the story. Like the story is at the back of our mind in the sense that we want the characters to be framed, because character acting, character performance is the most important thing for in storytelling, right? And most of the character performance, yes, it happens, with every part of the body, with hand gestures, body poses, and all of that. But most of the nuances in acting happen in the face. Hi guys. So in the fall of 2025, I got to host an 8-week masterclass titled Ethnic Character Design for Animation, which had a decent number of signups. I got to share a ton of rich information, secrets, industry insights that I used to craft an award-winning character like Noni, Eyes of Wakanda. The sessions were archived and compiled into a digestible course. The course will be available for purchase on Gumroad from 26th of February 2026. If you are an intermediate level artist seeking to diversify your portfolio to include culturally grounded characters in animation, then this is for you. Thank you for listening and see you on February 26th. So what that means is we need to make sure that every part of your design is leading the eyes up to the face. That I talked about this thing in design class. I talked about it in the color class last week. I've been talking about this thing. The person who designed this outfit understood what I was saying. That's why he put all this, like he has all these lines pointing upwards. But the other dilemma you might have is, okay, I have references with people that are colored. Like I have all these fantastic, colorful, human beings references, people dressed like this. So why are you telling me? Because I mean, if you look at the reference, this girl is wearing like plain. She's wearing a plain white shirt on a very colorful skirt. So are you telling me that she's dressed the wrong way? No. This is a cultural choice, and this is how people dress culturally. But this is real life, right? Real life and storytelling are two different things. We draw inspiration from real life to be able to design things purposefully for story. That's why we don't just take references. It is the reason why I, showed you different ways to use references. I showed you the literal way of using references as well as the Sunesis way of using references. But the same thing also applies with color as well. We're not just taking color as is in reality and just translating it into a character. No, we are thinking about, we're still thinking about story at the end of at the back of our minds. Because if I was to frame this woman in a shot, imagine we had a shot. Let me just give an example of what I'm saying. So imagine, because this is going to be a character that will be my assumption is that we are designing characters, all of us, whether you know it or not. You're actually designing characters that will be animated. So, or if it's comic book, they'll definitely feature in a story, whether it is comic book, animation, film, whatever it is, they'll feature. So we have to think about the storytelling. So now, if I frame this woman in a shot where, imagine this is a shot, like, of course the camera is, if we're doing a 16 by 19, it's definitely going to be longer than this. But just imagine if this was a shot and I put this woman inside of the shot. We're supposed to be looking at her face. Let me use this one. We're supposed to be looking at her face, but because of how complex, like all these beautiful things going on here, like look at your fantastic rendering of all these different things. I can see all the different colors and all these beautiful things. Why should I be looking here? I should be looking here. Like, the normal human mind will not care about the upper part of our body, because it's not interesting. It's not as interesting as this part. So my eye is here, but why should my eye be here? I should be looking at her face, her expression. I should be trying to understand her performance, not getting lost with her outfit. So this is what I'm saying, that we are not in the business of character creation, we're in the business of character design. So if you're going to design this thing purposefully, you cannot design, you can't just throw colors anyhow. You can still have a colorful, colorful outfit, but design it in a way that makes us look at the upper part of our body. So from her waist upwards, it means that that part should be most likely be the most saturated part, or the most intricately detailed part. So all these intricate details, I feel like they should actually be more at the top. But if for some reason you're not able to put it at the top, you can still find a way to desaturate some of these colors and make the most saturated colors at the top. So let me give you an example of this. Let me see if I can do like color correction on this. So let's say I just take all these wastes. I can take all these parts out. Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm going to take all the way up here. For one thing, one of the ways you can tell an amateur designer from others is the tendency to just throw saturated colors on the canvas, because it takes a lot of restraints to use more desaturated colors, be confident with desaturated colors, than saturated colors. The assumption most times, and this is a problem, I had the same problem too when I started out. I just thought that, okay, as long as things are saturated, then they look beautiful. But not necessarily, you know. So I've cut out, actually, let's try to follow, I'll try to follow the contour. All right, so I'll copy this and paste it, pasting it here. So now I want to desaturate all these things. It's just way too saturated for me. Maybe even trying to find the sweet spots. If I were you, I would even get rid of, like, most of all these multicolors here. They're just way too much. Like, reduce the multicolors and use more of analogous colors. That's another solution to this. But I'm just trying to see how I can troubleshoot without using that method. So this, for example, is way better. This is not perfect, but this is way better, because now there's a lot going on down there, but I can still see that the most saturated part of the painting of the character is at the top, her blouse. So now I've designed it as opposed to the way it was before. I've designed it with purpose for the lower parts to not be a distraction. The real solution to this thing, to be honest, the real solution to this thing is to make sure you choose colors. Let me go back to this, the original. The most important thing is, first of all, using less. This red is way too saturated. I'm going to write the notes down. If you need the PSD file, you can request for it. I'll write the notes down here. Too red is too saturated. Like use a little or no saturation. Actually, let me not say no saturation, little saturation, because you know the Caribbeans, they have a very colorful, like their outfits are usually very colorful. So little saturation, which means that this red, you should use a color that, if at all you want to use red, it should be like desaturated reds. Because now if I select this color, if you look at the color wheel, look at where that red is. It's on the right. This is just way too saturated. It's too close to the edge compared to the yellow. Look at where your yellow is on the color wheel. Yellow is not. So saturation is left and right movement, right? At the extreme right is the most saturated color. The extreme left is the most desaturated color. If I sample your yellow, the yellow of her blouse, that yellow is, see where the yellow is on the right. But if I sample the red, look at where the red is way more saturated than the yellow. Just way too saturated for comfort. You know, so it's stealing all the attention and away from the yellow, from the top part of our body. And all these other colors too in between, by the way, the same thing. Look at this color, see where it is. See where your green is. All these colors are just on the right hand side. They're just way too saturated. So you need to move away from this. Look at this red. Look at this red here. Look at where it is exactly. Yo, let me just say this first of all, that you absolutely do not want your colors to be touching, like to be at the very extreme. You do not want, for any reason at all, to have your colors must be, they should be somewhere around here. They shouldn't get beyond this point or beyond this point. The moment that's on the left, they shouldn't go beyond this point, because if it goes to this all the way, then it becomes gray. But if it goes all the way to, it also becomes way too saturated. So you don't want your colors, unless for some reason maybe you're rendering a character that has glows. So maybe a character that has like maybe lights glowing out of, like glowing in different parts of their suit. They have like lights glowing. If you have lights glowing, then it makes sense for you to get to this end. But if there's nothing saturated, there's no luminosity, there's no saturation of end, that you should not be saturated at all. At all. You should not get anywhere close to this end, unless you have components of the costume that has luminosity, that is luminous. Anything that is not luminous should not get to this point. It should not get beyond this point. But the character we have here is getting everything, is touching the edge, is getting really close to that end. It's once you get to that end, there's nothing, you can't go beyond that point anymore. It's just way too saturated. And when you light your character in frame, if you frame your character in a shot, let's say she's standing the way she's standing here with her hands like this. How do you light this shot? Because now you have your lighting department will be perplexed, because they'll be wondering, how am I going to light this shot? Because I don't want to light the character in a way that I can't flood the entire character with light. I have to cut off the lower part of our body. Maybe the lighting department will be perplexed, because they will not have to think of ways to light this character to reduce the saturation. So they have to put the lower part of her body in shadow. They have to put it in a shadow in order for the upper part to be lit, so that you can tell the story in a compelling way. But you can't light the full character. If you light the full character, our eyes will be going, the audience's eye will be going in the wrong direction. They'll be going to somewhere else. That's the problem with this thing. That's why I'm saying that we're not here to copy, we're not here to create characters, we're here to design them. And copying stuff just because just because your reference has it, doesn't mean you should copy it like that. Because now, if you copy it like that, you're going to cause problems. And I guarantee you that no art director would approve anything that is like approved designs that are saturated like this with all this complex stuff at the bottom. It's not going to fly. No studio's art director would approve designs like this. They're going to definitely kick back and give you notes because it's just way, way, way too saturated. So the second note I'll give is we need less details or patterns. We need less details. It's just way too intricate. Then also, if at all you want to keep the details, make sure that the colors are analogous. If you don't understand what analogous colors is, please watch the previous class again. But I believe you understand. Analogous colors are beside each other on the color wheel. They're just beside each other. So, for example, green in this color wheel, cyan, because cyan is somewhere around here. Cyan and blue are analogous because they're just beside each other on the color wheel. So if you're going to pick red as the dominant color of our skirt, first of all, you need to desaturate that red, and then all these other components inside of her skirt, all these details have to be analogous, which means you either go towards orange or you go towards pink. So that's what I'm trying to say. You have to go in either of the two directions to design all these things. We don't want to see green. You don't want to see which other color? You don't want to see green. You don't want to see blue. It doesn't work because they're just like opposites. They are complementary colors. Yeah. So I hope. Then also the detail, the damage. When I gave the assignment, I wasn't expecting everybody to do mod because most people are doing mod, and mod was just an idea that somebody suggested in the class. The assignment specifically did not say anything about mod. It just said corrosion, damage, whether it is water, the person being wet, or fire, maybe their clothes was burnt in the fire or it was torn. Like, you just have to think about different things, not just doing the same mod thing. But by the way, your mod idea it looks actually cool. The only thing I'll say is mod flying from, because now it looks like there's a lot of mod here, and I'm wondering, okay, how did the mod jump from all this space? Like, how is there no mod in all this space and then it jumped from here to here? So there still has to be a logic. There still has to be a story. If at all you want to use mod, think about the story. Okay, was it that she had to crawl through mud, to escape, an attack? Maybe her village was under attack and then it was raining when that happened. So she crawled on the mud to escape from the bandits or something like that. There's a story behind that. So now you keep that story at the back of your mind when you're doing the damage. Because now I'm thinking about the story and I don't understand this story. I really don't understand. So it's up to you, to go back and do the needful. Like this, for somebody who smokes a lot, maybe one day she didn't get rid of the remaining cigarettes, and then it ended up burning her house. That can be an option. And then she ended up having like her clothes ended up having a lot of burns, like burnt parts. That, to me, that's more believable for somebody that smokes, than the whole idea of mod. So we have to think about story at the same time. It's all part of method design that I mentioned in class 1. Anyway, that's that for you. Thank you very much.